I'll do. So I've got a really interesting story here. It's from a foreign paper. I believe it's Austrian, called the High Map Korea. Now, this relates to one of my other videos, which is about is migration being organised, and by the video, what I'm trying to imply with that title is it organised from up on high? I don't just mean like people smugglers. I mean, are the large interests, say banks or politicians or whatever, behind the scenes involved in it? Now, this article here is alleging that the Catholic Church is itself involved in transporting people across the Mediterranean and directly funding the people smuggling of the hundreds of thousands of people coming over the Mediterranean. So let's get on with it now. I have used Translate on this, so I will link the article below. But I've used Google and it comes up with an automatic translate option. If you're using a different browser, it may not do that. I'm not sure, so just make sure you've got an auto translate feature if you cannot read German. The church becomes our Soros. Scandal in Italy. Clergy pays Mediterranean NGOs. The intertwining church institutions, funds, and the people with Mediterranean NGOs has been known for a long time. Now, a scandal is spreading involving Italian bishops and high ranking church officials who, according to leaked prosecutors' documents, are accused of organising and financing illegal migration. One of the leaders of the NGO, SOS Mediterranea, has even had contacts with Pope Francis. Now, this is what I was saying in my video, that it reeks, this whole mass migration reeks of lots and lots of money and massive backing by huge organisations. And to be honest with you, with the way that the large churches are operating at the moment, the Catholic Church and like the Church of England, it absolutely would not surprise me if they're engaged in heretical behaviour like destroying the fabric of Europe through mass migration. Because, in my opinion, the majority of the higher echelons of these churches now are out and out communists. I think they're absolute heretics, and I think they are going out of their way to destroy Christianity in every conceivable way that they can. As the news portal RMX reports, citing the Italian La Verita, it's got a hyperlink there, by the way, on the page for that report. It is a serious scandal that is shaking the state of the church. The investigative authority of Ragusa, a city in the south of the island of Sicily, covered up the involvement of some Italian dioceses with the sea rescuers, that's in quotes, the Mediterranean NGO SOS Mediterranea. These should be payments amounting to at least €2 million. Oof. I mean, that's a lot of money, but when you're talking about these big boats that they're using, that'll be gone in a couple of days. That, like operating these massive vessels, which can carry hundreds and hundreds of people at a time, they cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands to run them each day. In some cases, the money ended up directly in the private accounts of the activists, yet no surprise there. I know where I live in Lancashire, we had the fracking site here in between Preston and Blackpool. And I used to drive past it regularly when I was visiting my mum. And most days, although you'd see it on the news when the cameras would be there, they'd always know when the cameras were going to be there, almost like they were talking to each other. They'd have massive crowds of people protesting. But every other day that the cameras weren't there, the news cameras weren't there, which was 99% of the time, there'd be 2 or 3 people sat outside. They had a little hut that they'd built themselves with a little log burner inside it for cooking, doing cups of tea on and cooking food. And they'd have like a 24-hour rota system going. Those people who were there all the time were paid. I don't know how much they paid, but they get paid for doing that. And they also get paid for interfering. So every time the water trucks were coming, because for the fracking process, they have to inject water into the ground with the chemicals. They had big water tankers coming, kind of look like the fuel tankers that go to petrol station. Big articulated lorries. If they interrupted them, they'd get bonuses for that. And same with if they managed to break onto the side to get through the fence and stuff, they get disruption bonuses for stopping work. So it absolutely no way surprises me that these activists are using this as a source of income for themselves and probably enriching themselves, because this is how they do it. At the end of the day, a lot of these people have got useless degrees. They go to university and they do, I don't know, lesbian performative dance, PhD or some crap like that. Sorry for the language, but it is absolute rubbish what they do. And because they're completely unhirable in the real world, they either end up somewhere. Well, they either end up as a barista stacking shelves, or they end up in a HR department, which is why most HR departments are awful because they're full of activists, political activists, or they end up as professional protesters who are often accused of having connections with organised human trafficking. Yet, well, they are human traffickers, and they should be classed as human traffickers. The Cardinal of Bologna, the Archbishop of Palermo, and the Cardinal of Luxembourg are involved. Casarini has been active in the left-wing radical scene for decades and came to the fore in 2001 when he helped organise demonstrations against the G8 summit in Genoa. The German portal for left-wing extremist cries, Indie Media, also took part in these violent protests with hundreds of injuries and serious damage to property. 20 years later, his NGO, founded in 2018, works with Sea-Watch for Germany, among others. Their mission is the same: transport migrants illegally from Africa to Europe. So they are illegally trafficking people. They are human traffickers. These people are organised criminals, but they are not being arrested. And this is why I can't prove it, but I know it is absolutely being organised by much, much higher powers, very, very influential people. Because if this was just fat Baz from down the Dog and Duck and his mate Steve, and they tried doing this, like that, they'd be nicked, wouldn't they? Old Bill would be kicking down their door quicker than you can see. Jack Lantern. He received personal support from the Pope. Well, there we go. He received a life jacket with a crucifix in December 2019 and placed it as an idol in the entrance of the Apostolic Palace. That would then be a false idol, wouldn't it? So that's very anti-Christian in and of itself. It's very specific in the Bible, and God gave a very specific commandment. You shall have no idols, over me. You don't worship false idols. It's one of the 10 commandments. You worship God, and that is it. This is not surprising. The Pope has often expressed his anti-identity stance, not only in Hungary, well, because he's a communist, he's from Argentina, I think it is, but he's a full-blown socialist. Not only in Hungary, in May of this year, did he criticise Orban's patriotic border policy, but in October 2022, he also addressed the invaders of the completely overcrowded island of Lampedusa. I wonder why that's overcrowded. Why is Lampedusa overcrowded? Oh, it's not because more than double the population of illegal migrants have turned up compared to the population that actually lives there, is it? On small boats, all at once, all at the same time. Not like that wasn't organised, was it? And welcome them. He has known Luca Casarini since 2019 when he invited him to the Vatican Synod of Bishops. Even though Casarini does not work for the church, in general, he doesn't seem to particularly like wage work, as an intercepted recording of him shows. In it, he brags about his donation salary of $6,500, mainly from church sources, which enable him to pay the rent without having to work in a bar. Church asylum and human trafficking and unholy alliance. Well, yeah, it absolutely is. But to be honest with you, with the history of the Catholic Church, this doesn't surprise me, because they have routinely been involved in scandal, and it absolutely is a corrupt organisation. I think Martin Luther was right when he nailed his proclamations to the door of the church. Radical left-wing anti-European smuggling NGOs, which sometimes pose with T-shirts, say that Team Umverkung can increasingly hope for the support of clerical circles. By the way, I know there's going to be Catholic people watching this who are going to be tearing their hair out at me right now. So that's just tough, man. You choose to follow these false prophets and these false idols, these idolaters. That's on you guys. In support of clerical circles who are completely misusing the so-called church asylum and reinterpreting it in the interests of human traffickers. I find it really interesting as well that the Vatican itself isn't opening its doors to all these people. It's got big, massive walls all around the Vatican to keep people out. And they're not bringing in tens of thousands of these boat people into the Vatican itself, are they? Oh, that's telling. As I keep saying, don't listen to what they say, look at what they do. Where were we? Interest of human traffickers. The huge resources available to both the Catholic and Protestant churches, I wouldn't be surprised if Church of England were involved in this, ensures that the migrant taxi machinery remains well-oiled. Mattia Ferrari, a migration addiction priest and chaplain on board the NGO ship Mezionino, himself stated the Catholic Church is becoming our Soros. These people are openly admitting it. And their actions, the fact that he's on one of these ships acting as pastoral care in human trafficking, tells you everything you need to know. These people are directly involved in the misery of Europe right now. And they are so lost, so lost to their own, so hoisted on their own petard. It's unbelievable. And this is the sort of stuff that created wars in the Middle Ages. And I do think that we are slowly heading towards one now. The asylum and needy industry has an ongoing interest in views of the financial and personal possibilities maintain a state of emergencies at Europe's borders. I mean, just going off onto that a minute, you know, if you look through European history with how corrupt like organisations go, it's like at the moment we're seeing in Parliament, and we're seeing it with a lot of people as well. Now, I voted for Brexit, and I've got people who are literally seeing the worst possible dehumanising rubbish you can just because they disagree with my vote, rightly or wrongly. I still stand by it, by the way, and I'd vote Brexit again. I don't think I'd ever not vote Brexit. But the trouble is Parliament has become so ineffectual at enacting what it's supposed to do. And same with this mass migration as well, where they are refusing to deal with it, as I keep saying in my videos. I do believe they're pushing us to a civil war because that is what led to the English Civil War happening. One of the largest contributing factors was Barbary slave traders raiding the south coast of England. And Parliament, rather than deploying the Royal Navy to deal with it, just refused to acknowledge that it was a problem. So you ended up with people from England constantly having to go to North Africa to buy back their relatives. It was basically a form of ransom. Otherwise, they'd end up in slavery. And some of them ended up being sold as slaves to go off to the Arab world. I think most of them were women as concubines. And that was one of the biggest things that pushed Oliver Cromwell into actually starting the English Civil War. And as a big part of what pushed the anti-slavery movement as well in England, and why there were, in the 1800s, why we had such a large slavery abolitionist movement, which went around the British Empire. Just a little bit of facts there for you. But this is what the Catholic Church are going to create. They're going to create an animosity across Europe, where people are going to be looking at them and saying, "You're not protecting us. We are your flock. You're supposed to look after us, and you're letting the wolves come into the field. What are you doing?" But it's because I wouldn't be surprised if most of these cardinals, bishops, and probably the Pope himself were actually atheists, socialist larpers who have infiltrated into the Catholic Church to usurp it for socialist means. It is to be hoped that exposing and prosecuting the illegal practices of population exchange agents, as in Italy, will draw more attention to the issue. The pull factors of all-round financial support and church asylum must be switched off so that a remigration policy can be implemented successfully. Now, that's the article. Now, with the remigration, something I've been thinking about lately, and I think people should start talking about. Now, there is the concept, what is called chain migration. And for those of you who don't know, as I'm sure most of you already do, but chain migration is where one person moves to a country and then other people who are in some way related to that person use the initial individual as an anchor point, in a sense, for their immigration process to be accelerated and to make it easier and smoother transition for their application process. But then when they're in the country, they then act as wider anchor points for people and so on. So you end up with this exponentially growing situation of more and more people trying to move into the country via chain migration. Well, I think we should implement a process of chain deportation. So if that original person commits a crime serious enough to get deported, everybody who was piggybacked in off the back of that person, they all go back with them. I think firstly, it would massively sort out the bad behaviour of certain communities once they start, because they will start getting pressure from their wider community saying, "You better behave yourself because I don't want to get kicked out because you're an idiot and you can't keep it in your pants." And also, it will act as a way of getting rid of a lot of undesirable people very quickly as well, and free up a lot of space in the country. Right, and we'll leave it at that. If you've found that informative anyway, or you've enjoyed it, or liked it, or whatever, whatever you want to say about the video, please give us a like, a subscribe, and put a comment below. I should post another video shortly. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Bye.